What's this? What? It's
Treasure Planet.
no.
That's Treasure Planet.
Flint's Trove? The loot of 1,000 worlds? You know what this means?
It means that all that treasure is only a boat ride away.
If someone asked you if turning Treasure Island into a space opera would be a cool idea, what would your answer be? This is something that directors Ron Clements and John Musker had the thought of doing during the span of the Disney Renaissance, and eventually becoming the motion picture that is Treasure Planet. Most of you would know these two as directors of Aladdin and The Little Mermaid and The Princess and the Frog. But this was one of those movies that they really wanted to do. While this isn't one of my favorite Disney movies, it certainly has some ambitious elements that I can't help but appreciate. However, there are a few major factors that I have to take knowledge of. Yes, this idea was pitched at the peak of the Disney Renaissance, but was rejected by Jeffrey Katzenberg multiple times. Finally, they got their chance of creating this project, but as a result, the movie was a major flop at the box office. That's because this movie was released on the same day Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was out, along with Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers 1 month later. Thus, this movie didn't have a chance to make its budget back. But does that stop this movie from being enjoyable? Of course not. But it unfortunately prevented a sequel that was already planned in the works. The movie is as obvious, a retelling of Treasure Island but set in space with a touch of steampunk fantasy. A bizarre one at best, as this movie represents ocean vessels floating in space with somehow breathable air. Funny enough, this particular style has been polarizing to many people. If you ask me though, I'm fine with this. Aiming for the actual spaceships rather than ocean vessels would have been playing it too safe or coming off as a copycat of many other space operas. But regardless, this movie takes risks and has fun with it. Our first main character is Jim Hawkins, a troubled teenager who wants to make up for his mistakes for his mother by tracking down the treasure planet that was built by a pirate named Flint, as a tale in which Jim loved reading when he was a child. Along with that, he's been dealing with a family split as his father left him when he was very young. This is a rather deep and realistic subject matter compared to other Disney characters who have dealt with parental losses. Another main character is partially animated through CGI as a use of a mechanical arm. This is John Silver, a bulldog anthropomorphic pirate who's half a cyborg. He's a dynamic antagonist who later confronts with what's more important within his life. Obviously he's after the treasure, but throughout the story he grows a connection with Jim like a missing father. So as you can imagine, the two share a very strong bond together throughout the majority of the film. And during the third act, they face each other over who gets the treasure, which puts more weight on the two. One of my favorite moments in the film is when Jim is escaping from Silver's mutiny. Silver attempts to shoot him but holds back. This is a beautiful moment that illustrates the conflict too well. Aside from these two, there's a batch of other characters that I also get a kick out of. Captain Amelia's snarky personality, Scroop's ugly nature towards Jim, Mr. Era, who I admittedly feel sorry for as his life was cut too short, no thanks to Scroop. Thankfully, Karma does the job later on in the movie. Yeah, Payback's a real bitch, ain't it? But of course, I can't forget Morph. God damn, I can't help but adore this little thing. Every time he's on screen, I just smile. With the exception of an inconvenience that he caused. But I can't stay mad at him for his pure innocence. Unfortunately, I can't see too much for the rest of the characters. Dr. Dopler, while not a bad character, seems underwritten. Supposedly, as he dreams of going on an adventure, he wants to prove himself useful too. This is based on how much he's expressed his frustration of trying to be useful throughout most of the film. But more often than not, he succeeds helping out in a lot of situations. His astronomical knowledge helps the crew escape out of a black hole's gravity, manages to break out of ropes when he was bound at the rowboat, took control of the ship to escape the treasure planet's destruction, and aiding the captain when wounded, and even bonded a moment between the two. So to see him supposedly be a character who wants to prove himself to be useful is already fruitless because he's already useful, and there doesn't seem to be much of an expedition for it. At the very least, he's likable, but I felt he needed more polishing to the writing for his conflict. There is much worse, however, particularly Ben. This character has already been given some hatred before, and it's easy to see why. He's overzealous and has an obnoxious volume in his voice. It also doesn't help that he was introduced way too late in the film for anyone to get connected to him. To his credit, he does have his purpose as he shares his connection he had with Captain Flint and somewhat of a help to Jim when finding the treasure. Not so much for this minor character named Mr. Snuff who's a farting alien.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean...
Yeah, I'm not kidding. There was an alien who was communicating by farting. Real mature, Disney. Real fucking mature. I've said before that I'm not keen on having toilet humor in Disney movies for my review of Bambi 2, but to say that this is crossing the line is an understatement. Who the dick thought that this was a bright idea? What were Clements and Musker smoking, and where can I fucking get some? Now thankfully, both of these characters have the most minimal screen time compared to Jim and Silver, and because they both have rightfully been given a lot of screen time in development, it's easy for me to forgive Ben's rambunctious personality and... that thing. As is, Jim's victory and his closure with Silver is all the more satisfying and rewarding on top of what is arguably a gorgeous film. It's a real shame that this movie bombed and the sequel was scrapped. Interestingly enough, there is a page that explains a lot about the sequel and what it was going to be about, along with storyboard artwork and designs of new characters. But regardless of the depressing results, that shouldn't stop my recommendation for this movie, nor would the audience who would appreciate the massive artistic liberties. It may have bombed and lost its sequel, but the movie is still well remembered. Given how old this movie is now, it doesn't hurt to give it another watch to put to the ultimate test to see how well it lives up. To the final rating, I give Treasure Planet 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you for watching. This is GoldenFox, and take care.